It's understandable. And if you have a free nights festival of the beer, I mean, it's a theater, in a way. It has a beginning, it has an end, it has dramaturgic points, you have everything there. So you understand what I'm... Yeah. And practically, her idea was to take this religious cult, this religious piece, and to make a normal theater from it. And she did it. People liked it, especially those who were guests and who were coming and who were not Hanti and Mansi. The Hanti and Mansi intellectuals were totally upset. How can you use a ritual, a sacred piece for theater? Can you use it? And actually that was the major cultural heritage, that no other writers, no other dramas, etc. And I saw that I have it in DVD. It's very interesting, and I'm not thinking that it's desacralization or something. But it comes up that for them it was practically an element of desacralization. You remember, I mean, I think in the Georgian press it was covered, I mean, in the last 20 years you had several major cinema directors who were trying to develop scenes in their movies from the Bible, about the life of Christ and about the crucifixion, etc. And you had a terrible cry on behalf of the church. How can you use Christ for a movie? How can you use, I don't know, to develop the relationships between Christ and Maria Magdalena? I mean, how could Christ has a woman? I mean, it's the same what the Hanti and Mansi were doing with these women in this remote place. They were very upset. So it comes up that, and this story about the Hanti and Mansi is just a sort of prelude to that, showing how different this culture, how different these cultural modes are looking like, and how the high culture and low culture are becoming very relative. So what is low for this is high for the others. I'm picking up piece from the high and taking to the low. I'm picking up low up and to the others. So therefore, and we are coming back to that concerning the fashion, there is a new understanding of this whole situation, which is speaking about it that we have a major culture, which is not high culture, and we have subcultures. Subcultures, we are coming back to that later. But okay, so we have at the very end the cultural studies, which is a high culture enterprise. So what are the basic statements from all of that? According to my understanding, if we are start to speak about cultural studies, so we don't have one particular field, I mean, which we could call this is the field of the cultural studies. Cultural studies is much more, for me, a style of thinking, an approach, a style of thinking about everything. So you can study, in terms of cultural studies, rituals, you can study political practices. For example, I mean, I'm doing it, you can study the speeches as presidents from point of the cultural studies. And you can study sexual practices also in the same fashion. Here the methods are very transferable. The approaches are very transferable. For example, there is a very interesting new work done at the St. Petersburg European University by a Russian woman whose name is Tyomkina. She was studying the sexual practices of young women in Armenia, in Turkmenistan, and in Russia. And she wrote a major monograph about it. Very interesting, very nice, a very feminist sort of piece. But why I'm quoting her? Because she was interested in the post-Soviet women, so in the young women, I mean, your generation or generation of a little bit older than you. And her idea was that she was using from the cultural studies the theories of fashion, fashion as such, and she was understanding sexual practices of these women as fashions. I mean, fashions not in bad sense, but fashions, habits, practices which were transferred as fashion is transferred. And this method started to work. And this method was taking her to a very interesting result. Point B. If we don't have a special subject, I mean, what is constituting a discipline, a research field? Either the subject or the method. If you don't have a subject, a unified subject, because everything is filled up the cultural studies, we should have methods which are constituting the field. And the methods are becoming the major element of the definition of the field, but again, methods in a pluralistic sense. And then we are coming to the third point, that having in mind the complexity of the disciplines, the cultural studies is borrowing those methods from all over, from psychology, from economics, from history, from art theory, from sociology, etc. So it comes up that we have different cultural studies, and all of these cultural studies, cultural styles, are different according to the hybrids of those methods which are borrowed from all over. So in a good sense, if you go to the university library, you are creating your intellectual profile borrowing books. And you are borrowing those and those and those books, and you are borrowing the other books. And you were reading different books, and you were having a reaction to those books, and because the books were different and your reactions were different, you are creating different hybrids of knowledge. And as many researchers, as many hybrids of knowledge. So we have a whole gamma of those very particular approaches. Therefore, this is my first statement. The field is created as a series of hybrids, or even not a series, even as a network of hybrids. And each researcher, or each small circle of researchers, is creating her or his own environment in that respect. So let's have another approach to that. What we are having here. First, multidisciplinarity. As I mentioned now, many different routes: sociology, anthropology, history, philosophy, etc., etc. The second, which is the concept of the culture itself, we are coming to that back during the day, but let me just quote you the Latin root of the word culture. The culture is a Latin word. It comes from the Latin word colere, and from the colere, which has multiple meanings. It's protecting, relating to cults, cultivating, inhabiting. So many words which were somehow which could be related to this colere. And naturally, then you have different other concepts which are maybe concepts not from the culture, but the main question would be, is culture a tool for exercising them, or has culture an impact on them, how they are living? So it comes up that we are searching not for culture itself, but we are trying to understand culture in its relationship with somebody else, with something else. So I'm just two concrete. Thank you. Just two concrete examples for for that.